The world is changing. You've noticed this. For anybody who's ever tried to have a conversation comparing Heath Ledger's Joker performance with Jack Nicholson's Joker performance and been faced with a blank, confused expression, realizing that when Tim Burton's Batman movie hit the cinemas, the target demographic for The Dark Knight weren't born yet. That was a different world. Some of us remember a time before the internet, and as much of technology spread faster and faster and the world shrank to a dot in a few short years, we remember how we felt. For some of us it only seems like yesterday, when the vast majority who didn't really understand this internet thing very well thought that for some reason computers would get all confused at the year 2000 and the entire world would collapse. That was incredibly retarded, and yet everyone believed it. That was 10 years ago. Now at the cusp of 2010, we enlighten you to a history of the internet from those of us old enough to remember. The year 2000 arrived, the world didn't end, everybody felt like an idiot. Those were the days of uneasy transition. Snail mail was still called mail. These were the days when search engines themselves had to be searched for because there were about 40 of them, and the internet's content was spread sparsely across millions of amateur websites with animated GIFs written by 10-year-old pop culture fanatics using a simple website builder called GeoCities, one of the most popular internet websites in existence. Before 2000, we didn't have digital music, and our hard drives were stocked with MP3's closest approximation, MIDI, which sounded like this. Which is why media companies took serious notice when a new internet program called Napster started to provide easy and free access to music that actually sounded like it did on a CD. For the first time, the internet triggered a catastrophic copyright clusterfuck, and in 2000 it was the band Metallica that destroyed everyone's fun by bankrolling a legal campaign to have Napster shut down. But the victory was questionable. Like hurling a nuclear bomb at a comet, Napster simply broke apart into dozens of smaller comets called Kazaa, LimeWire and BitTorrent, which were too numerous to control. The internet told big corporations to go and collectively fuck themselves. People didn't want to pay for anything anymore. The dot-com bubble burst and old media started to cower. The collective totality of human knowledge was once stored in books called encyclopedias. When we were in high school, it was the only reference we ever used. And Encarta could possibly have known in 2001, at the height of its dominance, that it would be bankrupt in a few short years thanks to a stupid little internet thing called Wikipedia, an online encyclopedia that anybody could edit. Anybody who knew anything about the internet figured that after 5 minutes every article on Wikipedia would read dicks, LOL, alphanumeric goatsy image. Yet somehow it took off, and in the blink of an eye, millennia of stuffy academic culture was put out of business by teenagers writing 3,000-word theses on obscure Simpsons characters. In 2003, the face of the internet began to change. Making your own website with GeoCities became unfashionable. What was the point? All of your banal trivia was on Wikipedia. All of your Indiana Jones, Star Trek crossover sex fanfiction was on fanfiction.net. For anything else you wanted to write, someone had just invented something called MySpace, the founding father of online social networking. It partially absorbed internet society into a single conglomerate. For the rest, there was 4chan. A 15-year-old kid bought some web space on his mother's credit card to host a very simple message board dedicated to discussing Japanese animation. In a very short time, 4chan expanded into a million-strong community of babbling juveniles who went on to create every running joke the internet has produced in the past few years. In the meantime, the dozens of search engines that people use to find content on the web began to get absorbed by an upcoming company called Google. At a time when everyone was still asking Jeeves, nobody would have expected that in a short time everybody on the internet would be kneeling to lick the scum off the undersides of Google's immense monopolist boots. In 2004, another bored teenager crouched over a laptop and farted out Facebook, which almost immediately went on to restructure the internet's landscape. As Facebook proceeded to destroy the entire concept of face-to-face interaction, the now very powerful Google Corporation attempted to destroy everything else that wasn't the internet. It announced plans to destroy the concept of books by scanning every book in the world onto the internet. Those of us pained by the implications of this project were met with a hearty LOL, but seriously STFU. Television was the next item on the chopping block with the emergence of YouTube, a site that enabled people to upload and display their own videos. People immediately interpreted their own videos to mean everyone else's videos, and the media industry was again pitted against a runaway piracy empire. The future of the internet was here, and its name was amateur film. An actress named Jessica Rose fooled the world into believing her Lonely Girl 15 video blogs were real, despite the fact that her life appeared to follow a traditional narrative structure, and her bedroom was set up like a film studio with professional lighting and mise-en-scène. Meanwhile, a kid named Dylan Avery, in a performance more schizophrenic than John Forbes Nash, released a film called Loose Change, which put forward the theory that the terrorist attacks of 2001 were plotted and committed by the Republican Party. Avery pointed out that the hole in the Pentagon wasn't perfectly aeroplane-shaped, and thus we can only conclude that there were no aeroplanes. The footage was doctored. Anyone who claims to have seen aeroplanes is in on it, or possibly fooled by hitherto unknown hologram technology. The towers were wired from the inside. Every engineer in the world was paid off by the Bush administration to claim that's impossible. The American government paid off Al-Qaeda to pretend they had orchestrated the plot, even though the reason for this was so America could have an excuse to come in and kill Al-Qaeda. And amidst this conspiracy of millions of secret technology of holograms and hypnotism and mind wipes and Fox News, it would actually have been 1,000 times easier, cheaper and more fail-safe for the CIA to put on some turbines and hijack some actual fucking aeroplanes. Nevertheless, everyone believed, and you couldn't walk down the street without bumping into someone who thought that Bush did 9/11. They saw it on the internet. It must be true. The internet, by the way, had just surpassed 1 billion users, refreshing Facebook, downloading pirate music, watching pirate television, ninjas versus pirates. Everything that existed off the internet now had a more popular internet equivalent. Then came World of Warcraft, and everyone had an important decision to make. Would they continue to be ordinary people living ordinary lives, working dead-end jobs to maintain dead-end relationships? Would they become kick-ass warrior kings, saving the world from hordes of goblins armed with nothing but a mace and a 40-foot cock? People made the decision. The world outside went largely ignored. 2006. Lolcats. 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 Someone on the internet found a picture of a cat doing something amusing, wrote something on it, and it got covered in fucking Time magazine. At the height of this phenomenon, dictionaries were very begrudgingly forced to define lolcat. Wikipedia less begrudgingly. The internet, which took everything about itself seriously, sat down and methodically composed an academic article about lolcats, explaining the finer points of lolcat lore, including the ceiling cat and basement cat have been said to represent God and Satan in the lolcat universe. What the fuck is the lolcat universe? 2006 was also the year that Google, in its quest to own everything ever, purchased YouTube for billions of dollars. The attention span of the internet continued to rapidly decline. Someone looked at Facebook and thought, hey, wouldn't this be great with less features? Maybe let's take away everything except the status update thingy. Twitter was born and became immediately and immensely popular. In the meantime, the internet began to influence the offline world to a frightening extent. Media companies were basically obeying the internet's every whim in an effort to stay relevant while refusing to recognise that nothing good has ever come out of the internet. Snakes on a Plane was released because the internet said it was a good idea. Snakes on a Plane was basically the cinematic equivalent of that car that Danny DeVito asked Homer Simpson to build. Hollywood still can't figure out where it went wrong. Nevertheless, everybody that the internet made fun of ironically became a billionaire. Tay Zonde sang an awful song badly, got rich. Fred spoke rapidly in an annoying voice, got rich. Rick Astley sang a song 20 years ago that the internet suddenly remembered, got rich again. During the media's frenzy to make celebrities out of these people, they never once understood that we were making fun of them because we hated them. The governments of the real world suddenly decided that this internet thing was rapidly growing out of control and they'd been slow off the ball to massively regulate it. They tried to set up a system whereby a few rich companies got to dictate the speed of the internet access to various websites. The internet cried, protested and set up petitions. Senator Ted Stevens publicly defined the internet as a series of tubes, not a big truck, and furthermore allowing all these that support this to provide streaming stuff going on the internet. And when we take the really indicate anyone that wants to use the internet for massive commercial purposes, which is about as close as his generation ever got to understanding exactly what the internet was. In the last half of 2009, GeoCities, the most powerful website of the early 21st century, went bankrupt. Nobody really noticed. How do we describe the internet today? Where do we begin? Webcomics about maths and atheism. People dressing up as animals and fucking each other. Nigerians conning gullible old people out of their fortunes via badly worded emails. Memes. 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 People whose opinions don't matter believing that their opinions matter. It's the dark side of democracy. Whereas the internet at the end of the 90s was a sprawling mass of billions of websites that you could never surf in a lifetime, the internet of today is Google, Facebook and Wikipedia, and that's just about it. As we march now inexorably towards the next internet decade, we might pause for a moment and ask ourselves whether this is really something we want. Maybe China had the right idea all along.